Good afternoon. This is Ralph from Harold the Soon Coming King, broadcasting to you from the foothills of the Appalachians. Today is January the 26th, and today I want to speak to you about asteroids and meteorites, the dreams and visions, words that the Lord has given me over the last 6.5 years. There's been about 6 dreams specifically and 4 words in my prayer time that the Lord has given me concerning these items, and I want to speak a little bit about where they might have some application in the book of Revelation and something that's more current. So, as I was kind of going through those dreams and the words, I saw some key pieces that were common. One was that the asteroids and the meteorites come somewhat unexpected. They come quickly. They approach rapidly. They're almost upon us before we know what's happening. And when they do come, of course, there is a lot of destruction throughout the land. It creates a lot of fear, of course, amongst individuals. Just a lot of death and destruction, and that fear is pretty rampant. And I saw a variety of things like planes falling out of skies, trees bursting into flames, and just kind of whole forest areas catching fire. And that one actually made me think about Revelation chapter 8. It's one of the trumpets. And verse 7, the first angel sounded the trumpet, and there came hail and fire mixed with blood, and it was hurled upon the earth. A third of the earth was burned up. A third of the trees were burned up, and all the grass was burned up. It made me think about that scripture as I saw this in the dreams. The other aspect was in terms of timing, and the fact that this was pretty much an unexpected event. Was one dream specifically was how the government dealt with the announcement of these asteroids and meteorites, and how it happened was we got about a 3-day warning. That was announced that there would be some small impacts, a meteor shower mainly, but that there would be some very small impacts and to prepare for that. And then one day ahead of those impacts, so obviously 2 days later, the story changes that there were going to be bigger impacts. And so obviously people begin to respond to that. And on the actual day of impact, so obviously the very next day, that although most would not take it seriously, that these bigger impacts could have some very negative effects, it was clear that the elite of the world, very much so, was taking it seriously. And they began to move out to all their bunkers and underground prepper type environments that they've obviously built and created. So that, to me, that was important, that the timing of it comes rapidly. Also that it came like a freight train, right? I had 2 dreams where specifically that it was like a freight train approaching. Made me think of how tornadoes often are described. They come quickly, they almost appear, and then there's this freight train noise and so forth, and then they have their impact. And also that I saw that so many of these were exploding. They were stars, and then they were exploding, and that's going to be more important as we think about, I think, comets, and I'll get to that in a few minutes. The other aspect of it, which I really will tie into the book of Revelation, is I had one, probably the most key dream on April 19th of 2020, and on that one, I saw that these stars, as they were being coming down, as they were impacting the earth, that was actually there was demonic beings hiding behind them, like they were almost tagging along for the ride, but they were definitely using them for cover. And it made me, and they actually had a name attached to them, and that was Luminous. Luminous was the name, and I don't know if that was naming of the demonic being or beings, whether it was name of the meteor shower or the event or a particular one. But Luminous was the name that I saw in that word, or heard when I had that word from the Lord, was the word luminous. And so when you look at in Revelation, the third angel, it says that he sounded his trumpet, and a great star, of course, blazing like a torch, fell from the sky in the third of the waters. Now we know this one because this is the infamous wormwood, and the third of the waters turned bitter. And so we have this great star that, as it comes down into the earth, blazing like a torch. Now that sounds almost more, like a comet, and it made me think about some of the comets that are expected this year. And specifically, there's about 4, but specifically there's 2 of particular interest that are coming into our solar system this year. The first one, which occurs in the spring, is 12P / Pons Brooks. And it's got the moniker or nickname of the Devil Comet. And it's because of 2 things. One is it develops and has developed these 2 horns on the comet itself, and hence the name for devil, but also that it is increasing in spectacular fashion in its ability to be luminous, which I found interesting. That was a word describing this particular comet, that it was illuminating and getting brighter, and that it can have these great intensities of time getting brighter. And so that appears near the time of the solar eclipse, which is April, early April of this year. And then 2 weeks later, when you'll see it then, but 2 weeks later, it's at the closest to the sun. And it's located also near Jupiter. And I find that interesting because Jupiter is often considered kind of the king planet, right? Jupiter being the king planet. And I find it interesting that it would be located so close to Jupiter. But that particular comet, if we think about the trumpet description for wormwood, or we just think of how trees could be burnt, grass could be burnt up, whether or not that comet might have some impact specifically to the Earth. And then the other one of the 4 that is of interest is one that occurs in the fall. It is C-2023A3. Sumanichan Atlas. I'm sure I didn't pronounce that right. Atlas, but it occurs in the fall. And it was first discovered just last year in the constellation Serpens. And I found that one so interesting because, of course, in the book of Revelation, when it's talking about the next great sign in 12, we have, of course, the great sign that appeared in September of 2023. But then another sign appears in heaven. This is verse 12 down to 3. An enormous red dragon with 7 heads, 10 horns, and 7 crowns. And his tail sweeps a third of the stars out of the sky and flings them to the earth. And of course, these are demonic beings, part of his demonic beings. So several tie-ins here between the dreams and that scripture. One is that it's occurring and initiated out of the constellation Serpens, which is a very good description of what's there in terms of the sign. In fact, you'll enjoy, if you go to Nelson Walters, he does a recent dissertation, I think it's 20 minutes or so long, about that sign and some new things that they've uncovered relative to that sign for this fall. But I found that quite interesting, that it originates there. It's coming from Serpens, and that it's going to be fairly moderately close to the Earth, but it will be closest to the Sun on September the 27th, and then closest to the Earth right around the middle part of October, about the 12th to the 19th of October. So when you tie that in, of course, into the book of Revelation, you begin to get the sense that perhaps these are meteor and asteroids with demonic beings, and this whole idea of luminous and luminaries and illumination, even that Satan himself is described as one who will can disguise him as an angel of light, and that demons do that on a regular basis. So I just wanted to share that with you today, that I think that as we're looking into 2024, that we need to be very aware and watching to see if this is the year we really begin to see some much more significant asteroid impacts. And if you scour the internet, you'll see that we are having periodic ones. There was one not just too long ago that appeared, it was quite bright. Um, and we have these as they come over Europe or Soviet Union or wherever they're, or Russia, wherever they're coming from. But we're beginning to see more of those. And so there's been a lot of folks who are thinking that we're in that time. And I would want to confirm that indeed that's it. And I want to end on this note, is that last night I had a dream, actually it was this morning, about 3 o'clock in the morning. And the dream was about me assembling information and getting it out. And that in that dream, trying to do so, I was fighting time. I was fighting that there wasn't enough time, that I was almost late in getting that information out and assembling it and so forth. And I really believe it was the Lord just telling me that the things that He has given me in terms of dreams and words over the last 6.5 years, starting in May of 2017 to the present, I need to get out in a quickening fashion because time is short and we have a lot less time available to us to be prepared spiritually, physically, emotionally, and so forth. And more importantly, to prepare for His return. And so I'm thinking about trying to do this twice a week as opposed to once a week and be regular with it. I was kind of thinking once a week, but I'm going to try to get that out because I've lost count of how many dreams in those 6.5 years, although they're all ledgered and logged. But I've got to believe I'm somewhere in the neighborhood of 120 to 130 dreams. And then I've got 3 journals of things that the Lord has shared with me. A lot of that is personal for me alone, for myself, but of these things that I can share and are to share in this forum, I will. So as we give this thought and prayer, remember that we're not to be fearful, but we are to press into the one who is our safety. He is our protector. He is the one that delivers us from all things. And it truly is the one who we are waiting to see His appearance. And so with that, I would encourage you to look up because your redemption draws near.